worst things I've ever done. But had to take the Pietro's coins out of my pocket to drive me fucking nuts. Right. I've done a lot of desperate things when people's lives were at stake. It's pretty easy to manipulate me by making me believe that your life is at stake. When Maddie Boa and I first became friends, she was 15, 16. I'm sorry, I was crying. No, I'm not sorry. I'm allowed to have emotions too. So Maddie Boa come to me one day. She might have been 15 or 16. And she had been beaten up by her dad for being a lesbian, and she was suicidal. And of course I talked to the cops, and they tell me something that I'm told frequently and often. They can't do anything about it unless the victim comes forward. The victim has to do it. That's just not cool. Officers Ramos and Paddock of Boulder Police Department told me that Maddie Boa had as much right to be there as I did. I tried to keep her safe as best I could while she was out there. Not following her around or anything else. But like when she's in the park or in that area, instead of trying to run her off real heavy, just trying to make sure that people around her age that are going to keep her out of trouble are friendly to her and helping her out. Derek Parrish was one of those people. I knew him because of who his mom was. His mom was good to all of us. She actually was able to hook me up with a phone. It was the Pearl Street emergency phone. If somebody needed to call their mother or call into work or call up to find out if somebody who is missing is at the jail or any of the hospitals, that was the phone. I carried that fucking thing around with me forever. I didn't even know how to use it. People are like, so why don't you ever use the phone? I'm like, well, funny story about that. Nope, that actually never happened. People never asked me if I used the phone or not. They didn't bother, and I didn't bother them either because, well, I already had my own phone at that point. Now, I received calls on that phone quite a bit. And if I received the phone call, I knew how to call somebody back on it. But that's not what this is about, is it? Nope. It's about desperate acts. You know, I probably should have spent more time trying to run off Maddie Boa. But I didn't want her fucking killing herself from being fucking abused at home. I let some of the other guys know to lay off on her a little bit. I let them know that Officer Ramos was vouching for her time down there, so to speak. And Officer Ramos is an officer that nearly everybody on the streets had the utmost respect for. Now don't get me wrong, he's still a cop. Well, I don't think he is anymore because he got cancer. But it was important to try to get his words. It's been a few years since he got cancer. I hope that he's still alive. I did get some of his words on my YouTube channel. So let's fast forward to Natalie Bollinger. Natalie Bollinger comes into the Starbucks one day and she tells me that I'm the only reason she didn't kill herself. She was going to kill herself 100 times, she said. And I was the only reason that she didn't. Shit, I barely remember who the fuck she was. You know? I mean, I remember her and her sister coming up to me one time when they were 17. I wasn't sure how old they were. I was pretty sure based on the age of the guys they were with, they were probably adults by then. They weren't, but then again, it's not like I was trying to harass them every single day. There was one message sent to each of them because they asked me to, and that was it. 8 months later, they both were getting a hold of me, and well, it was a different story. They were both adults by then. They had both followed my rules. You don't get to hang out with me until you're an adult. And I was thankful for that. And I also remember one time before that where I had caught one of them in a sleeping bag with Arturo and another one in a sleeping bag with Emery. And that was when I had run those two young ladies off. They were about 13 or 14, I suppose, according to Natalie. And they did leave. The problem is that was actually their safe place. Pearl Street was their safe place. They were looking for love in the wrong places. They were looking for the wrong kind of love. But that's what they were taught. They were taught that drugs and sex are love. Anyway, when Natalie told me that she wasn't going to Virginia, she wasn't going to get on the plane unless I promised to go see her. And then she threatened to kill herself when I wasn't there fast enough. And then within just a few hours of that, she tried to kill herself. But yeah, goddamn desperation. Hell yes, I made sure that I went. I didn't say I'd go see her, you know, as an empty promise. I just didn't realize how important it had been. I didn't realize how screwed up her family was really treating her there. That no matter what was going on, it was always heroin, heroin, heroin. Her family always blamed it on heroin. Always blamed it on her addictions, no matter what it was. And that'll drive a person to keep on using. So yeah, her life was at risk. And you goddamn right I kept my word and I went. I mean, I thought the original deal was supposed to be if she was... The original deal was that if she was going to go to Virginia and she decided to stay there, that she was going to need me to come visit. And me and Maddie Boa were planning on coming and visiting eventually. Just Maddie Boa couldn't go. So yeah, I did that out of desperation. I did what they told me to. I stayed behind Alicia's work at Alicia's request. I took that busted ass phone that didn't work for shit because it was a gift from Alicia on my birthday. I was trying to remember Jeff Baldridge's words. He says, you know that feeling you get when you do something good for somebody else? Why would you want to deny that feeling to someone else? So I accepted the phone, and I didn't find out it was broken until after Alicia had changed the phone number, because she worked at Cricket. She had changed over the number from my flip phone over to Natalie's old phone, and she had also switched it into her name. And this thing is literally the cause of all of this fucking bullshit. That phone just sucked. When lives were at stake, though, I did desperate shit. Then, of course, there's some people are calling me up and threatening to kill me and threatening to kill my family and threatening all sorts of creepy shit like that after I left Virginia. Accusing me of shit I didn't do. And they were threatening to kill my fucking family. God damn it. There's not a single soul understand that. They were threatening to kill my loved ones, and that is not something I'm going to tolerate. I needed help stopping it. It wasn't just the violence against me, it was the fact that that violence was over things that I did not do. And it was the only place that I had a positive support network. So when Natalie disappeared, everybody wanted to pump me for information so they could argue with people online. I found out that Natalie was missing on the 28th of December of 2017. She wasn't shot in the head until about 2 a.m. on the 29th. All these people were wanting to argue and wanting to pump me for information. They could have been out trying to find Natalie, trying to get her safe. You know, I was so pissed off at her mom getting on my Facebook and calling me a stalker and being mean and cruel and evil, is that I was the one stalked that whole time. I was the one stalked. They made multiple accounts to harass me over and over again. They used my friends' names to create profiles to harass me on and with. That's not cool. All because Natalie was embarrassed. Does that make it okay? Then, of course, there's all these people offering to help and promising me that they're going to help. And then they're telling me that they're being threatened and harassed, and people are threatening to kill them and their kids. I got a whole bunch of those people recorded on my YouTube channel saying those exact things. People like Sarah Bacon, Carl Rogers, Aaron Cockerham, a lot of people. God, I don't know if I gotta do that. Of course, my car probably sounds just as shitty. So, we got this messed up situation here where I gotta do desperate stuff to protect people. With the situation with Miss Shelley. Well, I was at Candace Bondurant's house. She had to create a situation where I was afraid for her safety, for me to call the cops. And then the cops, instead of being helpful, were entirely the opposite. They were not helpful. That was Officer Michael Beard in Haxton. With people threatening to kill all these folks, and Candace getting harassed over me calling the Haxton Police Department I mean, I had to be afraid for her and her kids, especially the way she was telling me. And then with all these other people telling me the same thing, and Danica Garner, and of course, Rochelle Shelley Campbell telling me Ted really is that scary. Verifying the emails from Natalie are true situations that actually happened. And I had people telling me that there were 5 homeless people in the Denver and Boulder area that were beaten to death who looked like me. And I got all these people who are supposed friends of mine telling me that people are harassing them and people are trying to hack them and all sorts of other creepy stuff. And a lot of my friends, especially ones that I had for a long time, threw me away because some of them were actually friends with my predators too. They didn't want to take any part of it, and they didn't want to admit to the parts that they were there for. So I did the only thing I could do. I tried to keep Miss Shelley and her kids safe, and I tried to keep Danica and her kids safe, and I tried to keep Candace Bondurant and her kids safe. I tried to keep Cara Rogers, aka Cara Mia, and her kids safe. I tried to keep my little sister and my niece safe. I tried my best to do those things. And there were so many other people too. During that point in time, Candace Bondurant showed herself to be the worst friend I've ever had. To do such horrible things to another human being who never wronged you, that is beyond wrong. That is beyond evil. That is beyond cruel. And yeah, I get that her excuse is her kids. Just like all these people's excuses, their kids. But it's just an excuse because it's just their kids that they're thinking about. Or as I thought about all of their kids. I also thought about all of the people who didn't understand the gravity of the situation. People who said they were going to help who didn't. People who had been a part of the situation who said they were going to come forward, said they were going to speak up, and they didn't. People who said that they would go in with me to talk to the cops, and at the last minute, every time, no matter what, they couldn't. There's always some reason. And it wasn't always their fault either. You know, there was a lot of situations where people did try to go in with me, but they postponed or canceled court and didn't bother to tell me. Or, of course, my public pretender didn't show up again and didn't bother to tell me. When people's lives are at stake, I don't give a fuck about your secrets. When you want to tell a wallflower about all of your dirty little secrets because you don't want to tell your popular friends, somebody might listen to your popular friends. You know what? That's on you. When you go and stab that wallflower in the back, that's on you too. There's human lives at stake here. Now then there's the situation with Waylon Lolatai and his loose cannonage. And the situation with Christine Buhit and her drug addiction and what was going to happen if they put her in housing. People didn't want to listen. Whereas Christine Buhit, she's dead. Look at the situation where I tried to tell you all about people freezing to death out there in Boulder, and I told you all that somebody was going to freeze to death on Christmas, and sure enough, somebody I knew in Boulder, Colorado, Benjamin Harvey, froze to death without a blanket. When lives were at stake, I did desperate things. When people told me their families were threatened, I did desperate things. Because I am called mentally ill, I couldn't just go to the police unless these people went with me. Unless we turned it in together and kept record of the actual incident, which is what I tried to do before Natalie was killed. To show how I was being shuffled around and sent to do stuff. People telling me, oh, well, there's no resources here, there's no resources. People in Nebraska saying there's no resources here, you got to go to the Front Range, so I did. I told y'all how Boulder Police Department makes fun of us while doing this shit. And then they do it to Demetrius Shankling. Well, he's in a house. So when he died, you guys actually gave a shit. You don't give two shits when they kill my loved ones out there on the streets, do you? You tell me all about how they wanted it, needed it, chose it, and deserved it. No, they didn't. None of these people deserved it. I told you what would happen if you didn't do something about Waylon Lolatai. And look at that. He just went out and did it again and again and again and again. And look at Ted Bollinger. I told you what happens if you don't cut them off and stop these predators. They get a big head and they think they can do it again and again and again and again. And they do it again and again and again and again. And the more they do it, the more comfortable they get doing it. And the more comfortable they get doing it, the more they are absolutely certain they'll get away with it. And when they're certain that they'll get away with it, they'll do it more frequently, and then you get a lot more victims. Is this what you guys want? When lives were at stake, I spoke up, because that is the right thing to do. That is the right thing to do. When Desiree needed help and her life was at stake, you goddamn right, I went back to Cheyenne. I went there not once, but twice to rescue her from the same trap house. Now that's the power of addiction. Jamie, when she presented the situation with James, she presented it in a different light than what James did, and I think he should have the right to defend himself in the situation. That was a situation where Jamie let me know that her and her son's lives were at stake. That's how she presented it, at least. And all these people who told me that their lives were threatened or they were afraid for their families, and this was their reason for not helping. Well, that's not what the police wrote down. So either you lied or they lied. Which is it? Which is it? Did you lie or did the police? I've got you recorded saying it. I've got you recorded admitting to it. That should not have been necessary. What you guys ain't understanding is that many of these people who are dead, Anna Hunka, friend of mine. Natalie Bollinger, friend of mine. See, Anna Hunka, Natalie Bollinger, Rihanna Ingersoll, those are friends of mine. Rory Jeffson, friend of mine. Stephen McMillian, friend of mine. Christine Luheat, friend of mine. They're all dead, by the way. Onyx is dead too. A lot of people are dead. A whole lot of people are dead. And I'm supposed to have no emotional reaction to it, according to, well, other people who have emotional reactions to it. It's okay for them to have an emotional reaction, but not for me. I'm not allowed. I'm not supposed to have emotions, according to your mythology about autistic people. I've got a lot of emotions. I live differently than the rest of y'all. And that's alright. It's not alright with you guys. Like, for example, I'm not interested in sex. A lot of you guys think that that's weird. That means I must be a psychopath because I'm not interested in that kind of intimacy. But for me, all growing up, with the people that I grew up with, that was all traumatic stuff. All the girls that I was locked up with were in group, and they're telling me about, well, what their daddies did to them, what their brothers did to them, or their uncles, or their stepdads, or their grandpas. And they're telling me all this stuff. And then, of course, my first experiences with that were people forcing themselves in just the most cruel things you can think of that a human being could have to go through. You tell them no, they just choke you. No biggie. The messed up thing about having medical staff that are your predators is that they know where to push on your jugular and knock you out without leaving any bruises. The places where I was abused and the people that I was abused by had a history of this before me and have had even more of a history afterwards. What they did in Nebraska was not okay. What they did in Wyoming put children's lives at risk. They did that in every single state I was in. By not listening to me, they put a lot of people's lives at risk. But the worst at all of that was the children. Those children's lives never should have been put at risk. Especially not over crimes that did not fucking happen. When people's lives are at stake, I do speak out. And I make sure I keep speaking out. And my life is one of those lives. But it's not the only one. When it came to Desiree's life, you know what? It was more important than the things that she stole. And it still is, even though that was important evidence. And I had no way to get it back. She stole a lot of things from me and made it a very big pain in the butt to try to live in Sydney. But I also understood that part of the responsibility there, taking care of somebody who's recovering from a meth addiction, is that you have to keep them entertained. And I wasn't there to entertain them because I was busy trying to jump through hoops so that I could get the help from Amy and Andrew Witcher that I needed. Of course, at the time, Andrew Witcher was busy touching his stepdaughter inappropriately. And of course, he was busy doing meth, and he was feeding Amy Witcher cocaine, which she ate up. And I've stopped a lot when people's lives are at stake. That's how a lot of people were able to eat up my time, like that Layla Johnson lady. She kept on having crisis after crisis that would take days and days and days and days to clear up. And she was wanting me to have phone sex with her and wanting to do all sorts of stuff. I'm like, before you start getting like that, please meet me first. Turns out she was just a catfish. I should probably go to the hospital and get this stent out of my backside here. Since it's dark and it's nighttime, I could probably drive there. You know, I did a lot of things because people's lives were at stake. At Clearview, I tried to get people to listen, but they wouldn't. Clearview is closed down now because they did to other people the same exact things they did to me, and I spoke out about them. I speak out for all the victims because no victim should be left behind. No victim should be told that they need to go to the back of the bus, no matter what color they are, no matter what gender they are, no matter what age they are. They should not be told that they have to go to the back of the bus for any reason. They are a victim, you pieces. I did desperate things when people's lives were at stake. When people told me that their children's lives were being threatened, I tried going to the police. And I tried going public. And I was called schizophrenic and delusional for saying those things. But then what I do, I went out and recorded from all of those people the things that I was called delusional and schizophrenic for saying. I went out and I recorded conversations with those people that showed I was telling the truth all along. When these people told me that they tried and they were cut off, or they were told whatever excuse, same excuses I said that they were telling me, and I was called schizophrenic and delusional for making those claims. A lot of these people were able to use the fact they were afraid of the same predators that I'm afraid of. And they were able to use that to have court dates without me after gaslighting me. Now, how can they be afraid of these people, and these people that they need to be afraid of actually exist? But then me being afraid of these people, well, they magically stopped existing when I'm afraid of them? What, Ted Bollinger just magically stopped existing when I'm afraid of him? But of course, I got to worry about him killing my family, don't I? So when Mandy Hughes says, you know what, Sean, I live extremely close to Ted and I'm scared for myself and for my kids, I do completely understand that. For each and every one of these people wanting to dip out like they did, after not keeping their word for so long, after not taking it as seriously as it needed to be taken, they want to be angry about the things that I did in desperation. And with that stuff continuing, the threats against my sister and being followed by the cops, you know what? That stuff has happened to a lot of other people. Now, these other people were either lying to me when they said that these things happened, and they are recorded that these people said these things. In their actual voices, their actual words coming out of their own mouths with their own vocal cords, you can hear their voices. These events that the cops who broke the law repeatedly want to pretend it did not happen. These cops want to pretend that I am paranoid, schizophrenic, who has delusions. Meanwhile, the things that I said about Todd Ryan case, they're backed up by witnesses right here on my channel. The things that I said about Boulder Police Department, backed up right here on my channel. I didn't make people cowards. When folks want to call me a narcissist, I'm not a narcissist. Not even close. Each and every one of you have fears, and I understand your fears. I understand why you have them. Your fears are valid. However, They're shitty excuses. The best way to keep everyone's kids safe was to get the predators off the streets. But you didn't help me to do that. You thought that if you just ignored the situation, it would go away. And predator after predator that I tried to turn in was denied the right to, because I had to go in by myself, and I had to try to turn them in over the internet. I want you to think about this. Oh, 6 lights. Cops are pulling someone over. There are a lot of people dead over this situation. Natalie wasn't the first either. I mean, when you've got officers like Officer French and Officer Steinman, and there's still officers in Boulder, Colorado, you know that the place is screwed up. Chapel, Nebraska, there's lives at stake too. Oh, sheriff this time. I hope whoever they pulled over is sober. Anyway, when there were situations that were dangerous, like what Clearview was doing, injecting people with drugs the way that they were, and of course keeping people longer than they should have for Medicare and Medicaid money. Same things they did to me. All I was trying to do was show evidence and get a day in court. That's what I was trying to do before Natalie was killed too. Trying to get a day in court against her. And I went to everybody that I was told to go to try to get help. I was seeing therapists. I was doing all this crap that you're told you have to do. If you jump through all these hoops, then there's help for you. No, there's not. Not unless your family cares. That's the toughest part to explain to people. Not unless your family cares. If your family doesn't care, people can do whatever they want to you whenever they want to do it to you. And claim that it's your fault. When somebody wants to make an accusation that you're mentally ill, well, let's start off with, first of all, are those people licensed to make that decision? That's first of all. Second of all, since mentally ill is not a diagnosis, we need to break it down into the actual diagnosis. Oh, I'm probably interrupting this guy, so I'll close my door. But then, of course, you get all these situations where you've got somebody who's got PTSD from abuse, and you're treating it like it's schizophrenia. Now, PTSD, that is an actual diagnosis. Schizophrenia, that is an actual diagnosis. Mentally ill is not. It's never been an actual diagnosis. The term is mentally disabled, and there are laws that cover that to protect people who are mentally disabled. PTSD is a mental disability brought on by severe trauma, usually long-term, but not always. God, those lights are gonna give me a friggin' seizure. Oh my God. I'm getting a headache from them. Anyway, when it comes to saving lives, it's pretty important to remember that a lot of times the life that you save today may be the life that saves you tomorrow. And maybe they won't be, but maybe they'll pay it forward. Today, all day, I was wanting to pay it forward and say thank you to a couple of people for helping me out, for literally preventing me from getting stabbed to death by a guy who was messed up on drugs. But it is important. It is important to mention that every time that I had to do something desperate, it's because there was lives at stake. When I attempted suicide at the very end of January of 2018, before they caught Joseph Michael Lopez, the reason I attempted suicide is because of all of the people, including Miss Shelley, including Danica Garner, who were letting me know that they were afraid of Ted Bollinger, and all of the other people who were telling me that they'd already had their lives threatened, and all of the people who had run away because their lives had been threatened and their families had been threatened. People's excuses for dipping out was their kids, and I had to understand that, and I did, and I still do. The reason I fight so hard to get their words out there despite their objections is because it's not just their fucking kids. It's not just Mandy Hughes' kids. It's not just Alyssa Rainwater's kid. It's not just Candace Bondurant's kids. It's not just Carl Rogers' kid or Aaron Cockerham's kid. I had to worry about all of them. And Danica Garner's kids, and Rochelle Shelley Campbell's kids, and Rose M. Kelly's kids. And I had to worry about all of them. With the things that these people were telling me, the things that they were letting me know. Man, there ain't nothing right about that. With all of the things that they were telling me, by the end of January of 2018, how could anybody not want to end their own lives? I was pushed into that. I needed actual help, not prayers, not empty promises of eventually. While I waited for them and their eventually, people like Sarah Bacon, and I'm still enduring more crimes. I'm still stuck out here being victimized without a guardian. I'm going to try to get some sleep, I suppose. I don't feel very good. I'm sick to my stomach. And I miss everybody. I miss the ones who are dead. I miss the ones who are alive. I miss them. That's something they didn't get. I was cut off from all of my loved ones, all of my positivity, all at once, over a rumor. And none of these people None of these people can somehow, for some reason, grasp the concept of that or wrap their heads around it. When I asked people to tell the truth, I didn't think that that was a rocket science. On some of my videos, when I'm talking to folks, I ask them questions to get the answers that, of course, are important. How can you make the right decisions if you don't have the right information? And how are you going to get the right information when you ignore one entire side? I don't think there's any room in here for me to put my stuff, and I'm also starting to get sick to my stomach, so I better open the door and move stuff out of projectile puking range, hopefully. Anyway, autistic people are sponges. Every one of us. We're all sponges. We're forced to bottle everything up, and maybe when we get home we get to release it with some loved ones. Or by ourselves with video games or the like. But every single one of us is at risk. And most of the things that make us at risk are your ignorance, your bias, your assumptions. Anyway, it's good to be rid of you. Thanks for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. And remember, you are your brother's keeper. No victim left behind.